Nigerian General Martin Luther Agwai has a difficult and dangerous assignment.
Good morning. How are you all?
He's the commander of UNAMID, the United Nations African Union mission in Darfur. His job? To keep the peace in one of the world's bloodiest and most protracted conflicts.
I try to remind the whole world that if we believe that there are difficulties, there are challenges, there are things that need to be done in Darfur, then we need to put our money where our mouth is.
Caught in the middle of a war between Sudanese government forces and heavily armed rebel groups, UNAMID is undermanned and outgunned. After 5 years of fighting and as many as 300,000 people dead and 2.5 million displaced, the UN is meant to be bringing an end to this war. But the world's largest peacekeeping mission is bogged down and is unable to fulfill its mandate to keep the peace.
Presently in Darfur, there is no peace to keep. That makes our job more difficult.
In the searing heat of Darfur lies El Fasher, the capital of North Darfur. There's little sign here of the death and destruction that has ravaged this land. Life goes on. But El Fasher can't escape the crisis. On the city fringes, around 150,000 people have crammed into camps seeking refuge from the fighting. Almost 2 million people live in camps like this across Darfur. On the other side of the city, another camp. This is where the UN and the African Union have joined forces for their mission in Darfur. It's 9 a.m. and UNAMID Commander General Agwai convenes his daily security meeting.
And in that area also, it seems that the fights did not stop, especially in the south.
Reports of fighting have the General worried. The recent death of several of his peacekeepers has UNAMID on a high state of alert, one step away from full evacuation.
Why don't you look at the experience of UNAMID?
As commander, each day you keep hoping and keeping your fingers crossed that all the numerous patrols that we send outside all come back with no incident. But not every day you will be lucky.
On the 8th of July, UNAMID suffered its worst day in Darfur. The UN suspects the Arab militia group Janjaweed ambushed a convoy of soldiers and policemen on its way back from a patrol. 7 peacekeepers were killed and 22 injured in a fight that lasted more than 2 hours. With no air support, they were sitting ducks.
If we have to attack helicopters, that would have definitely been a super bonus because we would have been able to shift the fire on them and maybe save more lives.
With no helicopters, UNAMID is unable to counterattack, and the warring parties know it.
We're now being targeted. We're now being pulled in as part of the conflict. And sadly, a lot of them have to pay the supreme sacrifice of losing their lives.
I want to assure the whole international community that to those who think they can perpetuate this act and discourage us from our mission, I will say they will fail.
The problem for UNAMID is the Janjaweed has support in high places. The UN accuses the Sudanese government of directing the Arab militia. It's an accusation Sudan's presidential advisor on Darfur denies.
First of all, I would say very frankly and very honestly, all what is being said in the Western media is deliberate distortion.
So you can categorically say that your government is not funding any party in the conflict?
Definitely. Why should we do? The rebellion is against the government. So why should the government support any group against the other? Except in the sense that we have always opened our doors for those who would like to come for peace, those who would like to negotiate with us.
Only 2 rebel groups have been willing to negotiate with the government and sign the Darfur peace agreement. Many more groups have dug in and refused to negotiate. That's turned Darfur into a diplomatic minefield for General Agwai.
Not all the actors, not all the stakeholders sign the agreement. So it becomes very difficult for you on the ground to try to enforce any peace agreement.
From the air, the enormity of General Agwai's problem is clear. He's been promised a force of 26,000, but so far he has less than 10,000 peacekeepers spread thinly across the hostile Darfur landscape, an area the size of France. Peace has proved elusive. What began as an uprising of African tribespeople against the majority Arab government has spread. Rival ethnic groups have been drawn into the conflict as they compete for scarce resources. The UNAMID commander has come to Umbaru in the far west of Darfur to see how some of his troops are faring.
I just want to use this opportunity to thank all of you for all the good work you have been doing in the mission area. Your company commander...
This is home for a company of Senegalese soldiers.
Difficulties that you are facing.
It's oppressively hot and dusty, and their commander wants to make their camp a little more comfortable.
I want everybody should plant 1 tree before you finally leave here. Good.
Boosting morale comes easily to the general.
And who is the champion? Okay, merci.
The distance between
UNAMID's peacekeepers desperately need backup, and the commander and his staff are battling to make it happen.
You spoke about needing tyres and batteries for your 4x4s and the trucks.
Yes.
What are your APCs like?
We have 4 APCs here. 3 are working, not very properly but acceptable, and 1 didn't work, but can move a little bit here around the camp point.
One thing's for sure, new armoured personnel carriers will not be arriving quickly. Equipping UNAMID troops in Darfur is a logistical nightmare.
Yes.
The isolation of the area is one of the key problems. It's 2,220 kilometres from the port. You can't get further from the sea. And so it is difficult to move the kit down that route. We've got good roads to the halfway point, and after that it deteriorates into what you and I would recognise as tracks across country. And not all the lorries, the trucks can cope with those roads, and it's taking a lot longer for us than we had anticipated in these conditions.
The major thing that most people still don't come to terms with is that the troops that were initially deployed here were deployed to observe and report the implementation of the Darfur peace agreement. It became easier to deploy this way, lightly equipped, and to be able to move around, believing that there is a peace to keep. But things have turned out to be different. Okay, let's go.
With tensions already high, July, the general's problems could be about to get considerably worse. The International Criminal Court's prosecutor wants Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir arrested and tried for war crimes in Darfur. This would likely mean a backlash against UNAMID.
ICC is a political instrument, and that they are playing with fire, and that this is destabilizing not only Sudan, but the whole region.
Could you guarantee the safety of UNAMID if President Bashir is indeed indicted?
Well, security is not something that can be guaranteed by somebody, and it is the state in the country.
Would you ask UNAMID to leave?
We will look in all whole options that we have then, and we'll discuss it very thoughtfully, and we'll take the right decisions then, inshallah.
The International Court is working on judicial issues. We belong to two different organizations. We have two different approaches. Yes, any action each of us take may have effect on the other. Thank you very much.
Meanwhile, General Agwai must focus on the immediate threats. And next stop is Tine, on Sudan's western border. These peacekeepers are in a very delicate position. Just a few hundred metres away is Chad, a country that has been accused of sponsoring many of the rebels.
This is one of the areas that really we have to build up to be able to monitor and maintain a full picture of what happens between the two countries for a lasting solution to the Darfurian crisis. We must have a final solution to the Chad-Sudan problem.
Chad and Sudan are seen as fighting a proxy war in Darfur. Both governments accuse each other of funding rebels to launch cross-border raids. Those Chadian-backed rebels have already sent a warning to the Sudanese. Earlier this year, the conflict came to the capital for the first time when rebels launched an audacious attack here in Khartoum. Their aim was to seize power. The Sudanese army repelled the rebels. Since then, the army's gone on the offensive, launching a series of attacks on Darfur camps for the internally displaced. The government believes the rebels have infiltrated these camps and are using them to launch counterattacks.
Because these people were very well entrenched in the camps, they mobilized and they started to shoot the police before the police reacted.
But isn't it inevitable that innocent people will be killed?
It's definitely innocent people were killed. Definitely that was very unfortunate, and definitely it is something regrettable. And I think a clean job should be done to take these people out of the camp without, if possible, hurting any civilian. But I ask you, is that the only case in Sudan?
Well, very few wars have had 300,000 people dead and 2.5 million displaced.
It is not 30,000. How that was the number what was said by the British ambassador or whatever in the UN, and he regretted it.
Well, the United Nations says the estimate is 300,000 people dead.
That was not the United Nations. It was somebody in the United Nations who is a British ambassador or envoy or whoever.
What's your estimate? How many people have died in this conflict?
I don't want to say a wild number, really. And I heard estimates of 10,000. I heard something like this, and I don't think the number is very big, actually.
This is a gross understatement. Both the United Nations and African Union say 300,000 have been killed as a result of the conflict, most of them because of malnutrition. The government has extended its offensive beyond the camps and is now attacking rebel strongholds south of El Fasher. We were on hand when one of the most heavily armed guerrilla groups rolled into town. It looked as though tensions could flare as they eyed off government troops. But instead, there were to be no hostilities this afternoon. In a surprise move, the Sudanese government and a faction of the rebel forces are meeting here to try to find a way to end weeks of fighting. Mini Manawi, the leader of a faction of the Sudanese Liberation Army, made a rare public appearance. A key player in peace negotiations, he was one of the rebel leaders to sign the Darfur peace agreement with the government. But he's threatening to abandon the deal after his soldiers were targeted by the Sudanese military. A frantic afternoon of talks ensued, involving Sudan's vice president and even the US ambassador.
General, where are you? How is everything?
Mini Manawi may be openly friendly with UNAMID's commander, but behind the general's back, his faction is highly critical of UNAMID's role.
Unfortunately, up to date, UNAMID cannot do anything. They cannot protect themselves. How do you think that to protect the civilians here?
Ismail Hashim, the president of Mini Manawi's political party, believes UNAMID is little more than a government puppet.
They don't have any independent decision for themselves, you know. The government is directing them as they like. Actually, I cannot see any benefit from the UNAMID in this place. I don't think so.
With the formalities completed, it was time to leave. Rebel militiamen and government troops leading a wild ride through El Fasher before storming the airport. Rebel leader Mini Manawi was clearly savouring his role as peacemaker under the terms of the Darfur Peace Agreement, known by everyone here as the DPA.
What were the result of those talks?
Activation of the DPA agreement. Whenever there is any activation, we will come back.
So you're quite happy with the government stance now? You're happy with what the government are doing?
Yes, we hope to be happy if they are serious.
Do you think that's the end of the conflict as far as you're concerned?
I don't think that will end, because the ending of the conflict, there is many things. It has to be started. Negotiation and goodness, and also willingness of the progress of the DPA.
Mini Manawi has returned to his people with hope that they may be spared further bloodshed. It's a hope shared by General Agwai.
Are you pleased with the way that developed?
Yes, well, things are positive. It's better to do too much talking than fighting. The more people talk, the more they will come to terms, they will narrow their differences, and the more they will come to an agreement.
When we spoke to Mini Manawi's faction this morning, they were saying they're disappointed that UNAMID hasn't been able to do more. Have they expressed that to you?
It depends on who you talk to and what perception people have. And I love when I hear everybody criticizing us. That means we are neutral.
Neutrality may be one objective, but UNAMID's commander knows that his mission will only be successful if peace returns to Darfur.
If you are lucky, you come out as a hero. If you are not lucky, you come out with the whole world blaming you. That is clear. That is absolutely clear. But one thing that nobody will take away from me, nobody will take away this from me, that I am ready to give my best. And if my best brings out peace in Darfur, I will be happy for it. If my best doesn't, I will leave being satisfied that I have rendered my best, but my best was not good enough.